this group, and honored to serve the community. And one of the first things that I wanted to point out, it seems that we've had a bit of an issue with, with this COVID thing and people wearing masks, especially going out in public now. It appears that we've had an uptick in couples leaving businesses with the wrong partner because they haven't been able to identify them because the mask has been on. That's a joke.
I was laughing.
So whatever you do, make sure when you leave, you've got the right partner. Last night, we did have an unfortunate incident happen, and I'm just going to sketch out the details of it because it really broke my heart when I woke up this morning and read this on the Passover report. Every morning and every evening, at 5 o'clock in the morning and at 5 o'clock in the evening, we get a synopsis of the calls that have happened over that 12-hour period of time. So I woke up this morning, and in our community, and again, I'm going to be very general about this because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but apparently yesterday, an elderly person in our community received a call that their grandchild, someone who called them and identified themselves as their grandchild, had been involved in a bad accident in Richmond, and they were being charged with a crime, and they needed $15,000 in bail money to get out. The person who made the call both impersonated the grandchild, and then later on, I think a couple of other actors became involved that impersonated an attorney and a courier / bail bondsman. And over the course of about 3 or 4 hours, the senior person was instructed to withdraw $15,000 in cash, and that to go bail for the grandchild, and then someone would come and pick up the money. Well, this individual had to go to 2 banks and withdrew $15,000 from their savings account. And then subsequently, a person around 6 o'clock last night actually went to the residence, picked up the money, put on a pretty good ruse, and then left. And they walked away. They were parked in such a manner that the victim was not going to be able to see the tag number of the car or what type of vehicle it was. About 3 hours later, the victim attempted to contact the grandchild and made contact and realized very quickly that the grandchild wasn't in trouble and didn't need anything. And that's when they reported the incident to the police. I'm going to go visit that person later today to make sure that they're okay, and there's currently an investigation ongoing into that. I'm going to discuss a couple of other scams that have occurred to people in our jurisdiction as well later on in the PowerPoint. But the main thing I want you to be aware of as we go through this thing is that scams have been around for hundreds of years. It's nothing new. It's not going to go away. And the only way that we're going to fight this is if we understand and realize the elements of the scam. And if you have this in the back of your mind, then when you receive that phone call, or you receive that email, or you receive that contact from someone, hopefully you'll be able to reference back and go, wait a minute, I think that what I'm hearing may be a scam. And I call this presentation the skeleton of a scam, because I think what we want to do is lay bare what's going on so that you can recognize it. And breaking it down even further, I call the elements of the scam the bones. And once a suspect or a criminal or a scammer puts these bones together, it forms the perfect skeleton. of the crime. And when the crime, and then if you happen to open the door and you let that skeleton in, then you're going to become a victim. There's just no way around that. So we're going to go over several things to look for in what I call the bones of a scam. And if anybody has any questions along the way, feel free to chime in and ask me. If I can't answer it right away, I will. And if I will do so later, or it might be answered later in the presentation. And if for some reason I don't know the answer, I'll get your name and your information, and I will get the answer and I will get back with you. So let's take a look at some of these quote unquote bones.
You ready?
So one of the things that we want to,
for the presentation?
yes, go ahead.
So can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So when you're ready to move forward, just let me know, Ron.
You can go ahead to, okay, that's pretty much what I first covered. So you go to the next slide. So one of the first things that we see a lot of, obviously, is people sending money to people and they have no clue who they are. So anytime that you are contacted by any individual, any entity, or anything that looks like a business, you've never met these people, you've never done any business with them, you need to be very aware that this is the beginnings of what could be a scam. Never send money to people you haven't met in person. If you don't know who they are and you can't reach out to them and talk to them on the phone, or you can't meet them in person, you don't have any business giving them money. We see a lot of people giving money to people that they've never met, particularly over the internet. You should never send the money to pay for taxes or fees on lottery or prize winnings. One of the first scams that I ever worked that was an internet scam was back in the, probably in the mid to late 90s. I was about the mid 90s. And I worked for the Albemarle County Police Department, which is the agency I retired from. And there was a lady whose daughter called me. This lady was in her 60s at the time. Her daughter called and said, "I think my mother's been the victim of a scam." I went out and met with her, and she had been contacted by a company that said, "You've won a prize. You've won," I don't know if it was $6 million or $1 million, but it was some exorbitant amount of money that this person had won in a sweepstakes that was not in the United States. It was a sweepstakes in Europe. And, you know, the email was, "Congratulations, you've won. All we need you to do is send X amount of dollars to pay the taxes and the fees for shipping and processing this money to you. And we need something like $600. Well, the lady sent them $600. This went on for about a month and a half, and they continually were asking for money to pay for fees to get this money. And eventually the lady had spent $6,000, which is money she really didn't have, to obtain this prize. And even when I got involved, and even when I pointed out to her that this was a scam and the reasons why it was a scam, she refused to believe that she had been taken advantage of. And I ended up making several calls, and I actually talked to the scammers, and they were good. They were really, really good. But one of the things that brought it to a head was I was able to call one of the telephone numbers, had a New York area code, and I called the New York City Police Department, and I asked them to go to the address registered to the phone. And the NYPD went, and then they called me back and said, "That is a vacant building. There's nobody there." And then we found out through the cell phone company that the number the calls were being made from had been purchased. Even though the phones had been purchased and activated in the United States, they were taken out of the country. And so these scammers were in Brazil. So we didn't have any, there was absolutely no recourse at that point. There was no way we could prosecute them, especially in the mid-90s, because we didn't have any way to reach out internationally, even on the FBI or the federal level, in order to track these people down and prosecute them. I see a phone. Carolyn, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I think,
Okay. I
okay.
saw a little phone where my picture had been, so I didn't know. I didn't know what that was.
We are good.
Okay. So, so when you get these unsolicited emails or even letters in the mail that say that you've won something, if you didn't enter a sweepstakes, if you didn't personally do this, then this is not something that you want to even begin to go down the road for. And you'll never, ever, if somebody says something is free, but then you have to pay money to get it, it's not free, and that's a scam, straight up. No doubt, it's something that is going to take your money, and you're not going to see it again. You also never want to provide your banking information to people or businesses that you don't know. I would strongly recommend, if you're doing business online, make sure that you are doing it with a reputable company. Make sure that you are doing it with an established group that you know that you can trust. And again, this is another one of those situations where if someone is reaching out to you, for instance, I give this example quite a bit, and it happened to me. My wife and I went to see a play in New York City, and as we were walking into the play, I received a text message from my bank saying that my debit card had been locked for unusual activity, and that I needed to call them and to verify that things were okay. I was distracted. I was going into a play. I was in a place where I knew that it would be reasonable for the bank to contact me and say, "Hey, we're seeing that you're in New York City spending money. Is that really you?" So before I could even think about it, I called the number, and they asked me a lot of questions. What's your date of birth? What's your social security number? What's this? What's that? I gave them all that information. And
Oh, no.
yeah. And no more than as soon as I got back with my wife and I told her what happened, I said, "Man, that was a close one. The debit card was locked." And she goes, "Baby, that was a scam." So I called the bank right away. I had them cancel my debit card, and I had to go to the bank the next morning to get a new card. I should have known. I should have known that this was a scam. But I was distracted. I wasn't thinking, and I didn't think it through. And that can happen to any of us. But you never ever want to do that. You never want to send money in advance to obtain a loan or a credit card. I used to get these offers in the mail all the time. If you'll pay us $50, we'll send you a credit card. Well, if you want me to use your card and you're going to make money off my interest, why am I paying you $50 to get that card? You should never ever have to put money up front to initiate a loan or to get a credit card. And going back to these two in red from last night, this one, never send money for an emergency situation without verifying that it's a real emergency. In this case last night, this individual thought that they were speaking to their grandchild. What they should have done was, once they hung up the phone, was called another relative, either called his parents, her parents, someone that knew this person and verified. One of the things that they're trying to do here is play on your emotions. They want you to be upset. They want you to be distracted, and they're trying to throw you off your game. And everybody knows that when it comes to grandchildren, you're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that they're safe and that they're not harmed. And so, again, this is all in the arena of look for those bones, look at what's going on in front of you and question it. Don't ever take anything for granted or at face value. This next one, never send funds from a check in your account until it officially clears, which can take weeks. These scams have been around, I know, for the past 20 to 25 years. I worked my first one in the early 90s. And basically what this scam is doing is somebody, let's say that you've advertised on Craigslist that you have a car for sale. And you want $3,000 for that car. All of a sudden somebody contacts you and they say, hey, my name is Fred and I'd really like to have your car. I tell you what I'm going to do. I just got a cashier's check for $10,000 and I'm going to send it to you. And I want you can, I just don't have time to go to the bank. So I'm going to send that whole check to you and just go ahead and put it in your bank. Take the $3,000 out for the vehicle. Send me the other $7,000, or if you even want to keep $500 extra for doing this, you can. But send me the rest of the funds, and then I'll come up and get the car in a couple weeks. So you receive this, and even in today's electronic world, it can take several days to verify a transaction like this. So this check comes to you. You take it to your bank, you deposit it in there, you withdraw $7,000 out, and then you either wire it or send it back to this person that initiated this transaction. And then now you are sitting there with a deficit of $7,000. That check's not going to clear. It's going to be a few days, but trust me, it's not going to clear. And then when the bank calls you and says, that cashier's check didn't clear, the $7,000 you took out of your account, you are now responsible for. So this one we see on a regular basis. And if you just, again, look for the bones and don't let the skeleton come together, then you're not going to be a victim. Does anybody have any questions up through now?
Can you hear me, Ron?
Yes, ma'am.
My bank would put a hold on that check for quite a while and wouldn't give the cash.
That's a good point, except I ran into something on a recent case we worked where the bank told me that depending on the longevity of the account holder who deposited the funds, that they may not hold on to that check for an extended period of time. And that actually happened to someone. They deposited over $100,000 into a person's account. And because the initial account that the lady had established, she was being a go-between. She had for some time. And the funds that went into that account, they dispersed immediately.
Yeah, they sort of trust you if you're a long
Exactly.
customer.
Exactly.
Yes. Thank you.
The two other accounts that she established that were newer, when the funds went into those accounts, they were held for 10 days. So what you're saying has a lot of validity to it. However, I found out that depending on the bank, each one has a bit of a different policy. And it is possible that if you've been an account holder in that bank for 10, 20, 30 years and in good standing and make a transaction like this, they may not question it. And they may go ahead and release funds to you, or at least partial funds. Anybody else?
Yeah, Ron. Hi, this is Jenny.
Yeah.
Hi, Jenny. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, thanks. I just wanted to ask a question because I think my husband and I were almost scammed by Craigslist when we were looking for a used pontoon boat. All these other Lakers will appreciate that. And we got a response back, and it was this whole crazy story, and it was going to go through some transit company or something like that. So anyway, thank God we didn't do anything with it. But should I still report that? Because it really seemed like it probably is a scam.
Yes, ma'am. And I think you're exactly
Okay.
right. There's no doubt in my mind it's a scam. And one of the things that you can do is, and I don't have the information directly in front of me, but you can Google it, is the FBI and the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, both have internet, basically what I call an internet hotline, where you can go to that particular website and you can upload an electronic report of the scams or what you think is a potential scam.
Okay.
One of the reasons why we encourage you to go to the federal organizations is because, number one, they're keeping track of all this. And number two, they are starting to develop tactics through the international law enforcement world for being able to track down and find some of these people that are committing these scams. Obviously, like the scam that was committed last night, luckily that has a local presence to it. Somebody physically went to these people's house and got that money. So there's a possibility we may be able to put hands on them. But the majority of the scams that you're going to experience are not in this country. They are people that are operating outside of the United States, and they're using either email addresses or phone numbers or other things to make you think that they are within the United States, but they're not. And I will take a minute to talk about this because this is important. If you have been a victim of identity theft, if someone has, like we had one of these came to light yesterday as well, a gentleman received a utility bill and a demand notice from a utility saying, you need to pay this. And the guy said, I've never had that utility and I've never lived at that address. And it turned out that someone had used his social security number and date of birth to establish a utility account for another home somewhere else in Virginia. And that's identity theft. That person's identity has been used to either get a credit card, or it's been used to establish an account for utilities or something. So if you've been a victim of identity theft, you definitely want to report that to local law enforcement. We will do a report for you. You can obtain a copy of that report, and then you can tender that report to your credit card companies and to the affected debtor, whoever it is that's asking you for the money, to show that it's an official report saying, no, this isn't me, and you need to remove this, and you don't come after me because it's not me. However, with these other issues, we find that these are often out of the country, and even though we may take a report on it locally, if we find out that this is an actor out of the country, we're not going to be able to do anything about it. So that was kind of a long answer, but in short, yes, you want to make sure that somebody knows about this activity. The more information that the federal government can put together on how these scams are being perpetrated and any information you might have that will link them to some place, they want to know about it.
Ron, obviously I've been involved in this just because, I'm with Triad, but I have two questions. When you said that one of the issues was that if you send us a check for $50, we'll give you a charge card. Well, that would not help a senior. Is that something that is being used for the young people that have no credit? Or is there, I'm just saying, is the scam now going to young people as well?
I receive a fair amount of these myself, and I consider myself, even though I'm 61, I still think I'm young.
Yeah, but you have credit. You already have credit. You're not going to pay $50 for a charge card.
No, I'm not. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We do see that with younger people getting those types of things. It's not unusual to get it's not unusual for someone to send you an application for a credit card with a higher interest rate. We see those all the time. But if you're asking for money up front to start a credit application or to start a credit account, then obviously that should send up a lot of red flags.
And I have one more question.
Sure.
How do they get our names? Is it for them to call us and pick us, you know, say, Grant, how do they know we have children? Or maybe they're assuming 99% of us do.
Well,
How do they pick up these names, phone
so
numbers?
that's a good question. So there obviously is a fair amount of scammers out there that are shooting in the dark. They're sending out mass emails. They have probably, unfortunately, anytime, and you probably see these when you do business with a company or order something on the internet, there's a lot of times when you get a pop-up after you've ordered something that says, you know, we share our information with other vendors.
Oh, okay.
So it's not unusual for scammers to hack into these databases and obtain that information. You know, it's really hard to tell how many people or how many businesses have been hacked over the years and gotten your personal information. And I'm sure you've heard about the dark web as well. And I don't go there. I've never messed around on the dark web. But I do know that there's a lot of information, a lot of our personal information is out there on the dark web. Even though we think that we protect our information and we have faith in companies that say they protect our information, I think that we can only reasonably assume that that information is only so secure and it's only a matter of time that people are either going to get your email address or your phone number or something that they're going to be able to reach out and contact you. I get a lot of unsolicited emails, and I get these phone calls from, you know, the numbers I don't recognize, and you know, it's all, again, it's all a big scam, and I can't overemphasize enough with this type of situation that you have to question everything that you receive or encounter that you didn't personally ask for.
You know, okay, I'm going to ask another thing. Since I dropped my landline phone, maybe, I don't know, a year ago, which was where I was getting all these sales propositions, etc. I get I get maybe one every couple of months on my cell phone. So I guess I kind of missed that there was so much out there. So really, it seems that the government, the police, you know, should be doing more to help us because it is getting so prevalent now. So what?
You know, I'm
just saying there should be more emphasis on it with our government. That's my point.
I don't disagree with you on that. And I think, and I could be wrong, that I know from a local level, I don't know, other than what we're doing, which is constantly pushing the word out about what we're encountering in the community and how people are getting taken advantage of. I would think that that would be something we'd have to address on a federal level. But you know, the bottom line here is that criminals are always looking, whether it's by the internet or by phone, or whether it's encountering you on the street and robbing you, or whether it's you know, breaking into your house and taking your stuff. We are constantly involved in the fight to repel the criminal element. And I don't know what else we can do on the local level, but I think from the federal level, there are probably things that could be put in place if you poke your political leaders enough, just like the do not call list. you know, it took forever and ever to get the do not call list up and running. And, you know, even though that's up, we still get people calling us. You know, we're still, somehow or another, people are still calling our phones and soliciting us for offers that we don't, you know, that we don't want. I don't know that I have a good answer to your question, Vicki. It's a really good question. But I think what I find out here is that we are constantly involved in the fight to repel crime. And every time we get something shut down in one direction, it finds a way to creep up and rear its ugly head in another. So I think it's a war we're going to constantly be involved in. And I think the more education that we have about the issues that are going on out there, the better prepared we're going to be to fight that element.
Ron,
Yes, ma'am.
you know anything about the movement to put robocalls on our cell phones?
I really don't know.
I heard something about it and I can't remember where I heard it, but we definitely don't want that.
Right. I understand. All right. So we can move ahead. We still got a lot of ground to cover. I'll go over it kind of quick. So if we can go to the, yeah, right one right there is good. Thank you. So scammers have many excuses as to why they can't meet you in person. They list numerous reasons why they need money and always seem to be in trouble. You know, last night, that situation that happened was rare. Those people were playing, in my opinion, a very dangerous game. They gambled that these people wouldn't call law enforcement or that they wouldn't be found out, and someone actually showed up at their door. And in my opinion, that's really scary. To me, that's scarier than the people that don't want to meet you. But if you've got someone asking you for money and they're not doing it in person, or they say they can't meet in person, that's obviously a red flag. Just like last night, scammers claim they've been in an accident or they've had a sudden family tragedy, and that they need money for something. You need to not take that person's word for that. Even if you think they are a trusted family member, you need to verify that the person you're dealing with is a trusted family member. And the only way you're going to do that is reaching out to other family members and finding out what they know about this person being in trouble or not. And if you can't verify, trust me, if you can't verify who it is or that it's legitimate, sooner or later, you're going to find out whether it is legitimate or not. Scammers that ask you for, and this is actually one that occurred, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but scammers that continue to ask you for money for plane tickets or give them a loan until payday, don't want to do that. I am aware of one of the scams recently brought to my attention where one of the local members here in Lake of the Woods, apparently there was an email floating around that said, hey, can you do me a favor? And people were thinking, yeah, you know, I can help you out. Well, I don't know of anybody that's got any pride at all that is going to put out a mass email to potentially, you know, 10 or 15 or 200 people going, hey, can you do me a favor? I need money. I mean, that's just not in our proud DNA to do that. So the minute you see something like that, even if it was addressed specifically to you, hey, can you do me a favor? That's a red flag. And what you need to be doing then is pick up the phone and call that person direct and go, hey, I just got this email. If you need help, I'll help you. Well, what's going on? More than likely, you're going to find out that it's a scam. Scammers will tell you to send the money in the name of a friend or family member to verify you have funds or to act as an escrow until you receive the purchased goods or services. We had one of those occur to one of our residents in the county, where they were asked to send money to a separate account that person was helping them build their business up and was acting as, you know, as their go-between to make sure the money got into the right place. And then as soon as it hit this person's account that was wired out to the scammer. So, you know, sending money to a third party, definitely a no-no. If you look at an email sometimes closely enough, even an ad in Craigslist, I've run across this, where the spelling is so poor. Those are probably going to be scams. If an email is poorly written, you see misspellings, and in the title page, if you look at the who that's to and from, a lot of times you might see something like, mine might be R. Kesner at orangecountyvirginia.gov, but the email you got might be R with a little r, or R. Kesner, and it might have 2 S's rather than 1 S at orangecountyvirginia.gov, then that's not my email address. They have created some type of email address to mirror my address to make it look like it's legitimate. If you see misspellings in the email, if you see misspellings in the title, if you get anything and it doesn't look like it's worded properly, then you're looking at a scam. If the email doesn't use your name, any financial institution you have an account with knows your name, so they should be sending you an email, you know, saying, you know, Mr. Smith, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kesner, or whatever. But an email beginning with "Dear valued customer, to whom it may concern," or even "hello," is more than likely a scam. And you need to start asking some questions and looking very closely at that. Once you see, I mean, if somebody really knows who you are, if your business knows who you are, they're not going to be sending you a "Dear valued customer." More than likely, you're not a customer. One of another thing you can look for, and actually, Carolyn, if you want to scroll ahead there on the PowerPoint one more time. And let's see. Okay, so you've received an email, and this is what I talked about happened to me. You informed that there's a security breach on your account, and if you don't take immediate action to do something, your account will be temporarily suspended. That is a huge red flag. That is always a scam. No financial institution, no utility company is ever going to reach out to you and send you this type of warning. It's if you ever see that, don't become emotional about it. Certainly call that financial institution or that utility company and find out what's going on, but never respond to these emails or these text messages by sending any information back. Don't even open it up and respond to it, because that in itself could lead to a link that might compromise your internet account. And in the next one, if you want to go to the next slide, don't follow any links in the email. Even if it says to unsubscribe from the sender, don't even do that. Sometimes when you hit the unsubscribe, and I've done this before, it'll take you to another page and you'll never get to unsubscribe. And so you really don't know what you're going to. So the best thing to do is just delete the email and don't do anything else with it. Calling or emailing you claiming to be from a government and asking you to pay money. We've seen a lot of these scams lately where people are getting phone calls from sheriff's offices about jury duty. Hey, we sent you a summons. You didn't report for jury duty. We've got a warrant for your arrest. We're going to come and lock you up. But if you'll send us, you know, $5,000, we won't, we won't lock you up. And then they'll follow that up by saying, you know, please send us money in gift cards. No legitimate business, no legitimate person is ever going to accept a gift card for payment for anything. These are scams. Wire transfer request. If somebody you don't know asks you to wire money through a company such as Western Union or MoneyGram, be careful. There are a few legitimate situations. where wire transfers make sense, but they're a bad idea if you don't know who you're dealing with. If you and I met face to face and I was selling you a car and I said, hey, what I'd like for you to do is wire that money into my bank account, that's probably going to be okay, because you're face to face and you're going to be able to, and you know something more about the person you're dealing with. But if you've gotten a solicitation online to wire money for some purchase or other reason, then you definitely don't want to do that. And Carolyn, you can go ahead. And one more time. Romance scams are something that we've seen happen in this jurisdiction. I'm going to talk about one of those in a minute. But if you're on the internet and you're talking to somebody, and if this is Match.com or the Craigslist or Facebook or whatever, and they won't meet up with you, you can't meet them face to face at some point, then be on guard. This is probably going to be a scam. A friend of mine just made me aware that a person that they knew broke up with their fiance, and in the process went to Match.com, met somebody, started getting pictures from them, and immediately this person like fell in love with them. And then the pictures they were sending, the person was very attractive, and then eventually it turned to him asking for money. And in the process, the person sent him money, and this other person who was her friend was saying, look, don't do this. This is silly. This is a scam. And the person was convinced that it wasn't, and then finally realized that it was, because the person would never ever meet with them. And so if you happen to be on the internet and you're talking to someone that you have never met in person, and they start asking you for money or anything else, personal information or whatever, this is a huge red flag. You do not want to be involved with this. Cut that off. And a lot of times you can kind of tell the difference between, if I sent you a picture, like we're sitting here today and I sent you a picture, some of these pictures are photoshopped and they just don't look natural. Or some of them are professional portraits and they just don't look natural. So, and if the thing that the person on the other end of the line is telling you doesn't add up, if it's just not making sense, the story's not making sense, then this is, you need to start perking up and realizing that this is going down a road you shouldn't be going to.
Hello?
Yes. Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Carolyn, you can go to the next slide if you want. Was there somebody out there having trouble out there? Hello? Hello?
I think they gave up.
Okay. So we can go to the next slide. A couple other things just to remember. If your partner online goes from hello to I love you in no time at all, even though this is emotional and hard to gauge, this is a red flag. So be on guard. And remember, the golden rule of online dating is, until you're absolutely sure of someone's intentions, never give your heart or your money away. Now, I don't know who we have out there and what your personal status is, but I would not have believed that there were as many senior citizens online looking for romance as I've become aware of. So, Carolyn, if you can go to the next slide. This is one that I just recently was involved in. This happened to a lady in our jurisdiction. They were on Facebook and somebody sent them a like. And this individual stated that they were talking back and forth for a few days, and the romance thing started to develop. And the person eventually said, "Hey, I'm stuck down here in Texas. I live in Hampton, the Hamptons in New York. I don't want to fly a commercial flight to get back up there. I need funds to take a charter flight." And the person said, "Okay, how much do you need?" "I need $12,000. Now, I can understand wanting to help someone out, but where it turned suspicious, super suspicious, was the individual then said, "Okay, I have a friend who is going to hire a charter jet for me. His name is such and such, and this is his account number. Please go to the bank and deposit $12,000 into this account. But don't just deposit $12,000 into this account. I want you to make 3 separate deposits on 3 separate days." The reason being is because I think this person knew if $12,000 was deposited into this account, it was going to get flagged, and it was going to raise suspicion. So this individual went on 3 different days and made 3 different deposits. It was after these deposits was made, the person re-engaged them in contact and said, "Hey, I hope your flight's going to go well." And then that person came back and said, "I can't go. I've got COVID now and I can't travel at all." And then bam, silence, nothing after that. So this person got away with $12,000. And if you want to go to the next one, Carolyn. We had, this was an interesting one that we just recently worked. So there was a victim who was on his computer, and he thought, for some reason, and we're not clear on this reason, that maybe his computer wasn't working correctly. In the middle of his online session, Microsoft pops on and says, "Hey, we see you have a problem with your computer. We can fix this issue. Please respond," which the person did. And this person actually had a bit of an IT background. The person responded, and they said, "Okay, for $99, we can fix your problem. Send us $99. So he gave them a debit card or a credit card and $99. So now they got his credit card number. And about 2 days later, they recontacted him and they said, "Sir, we're really sorry, but too much money was deposited from your account into our account. Instead of getting $99, for some reason we have $1,000. If you will give us your bank account information, we will wire into your account the difference to make you whole." So he agreed. He gave him all his bank account information. Once they had the bank account information, they went into his account and found out that he had $7,000 in his savings account. They moved that money into his checking account, and since they had his credit card, they were able to get a cash advance, or at least move $5,000 from the credit card into his banking account, which showed a total of $12,000 going into that checking account. After that was done, they contacted the victim back and said, "We have unfortunately overpaid you by over $10,000. This was on a Saturday, and we need you to refund that money to us immediately." Well, the guy got scared and he was upset, and he initiates contact with him, and he says, "Hey, it's Saturday. I can't get that kind of money from the bank." And they said, "Well, in that case, get as much money as you can out of the ATM, go buy gift cards, and email us the gift card numbers, and that will show good faith that you're going to pay us the money back." So that's exactly what he did. He went and got 5 separate gift cards for large amounts, emailed them the credit card, or emailed them the gift card account numbers and PIN numbers. They took that money, and then subsequently on Monday, when the bank opened up, he went in and wired the $10,000 and some odd dollars back to the scammers. And then it was a few days later that he realized that he had wired his own funds that were his own money to the scammers. So he was out close to $12,000.
Wow.
So that's pretty much it for me on the PowerPoint presentation. I hope that this information puts something in the back of your mind for what to look out for, and to be able to look out for those bones and not put that skeleton together so that it doesn't come into your home and hurt you. And if you have any questions or comments, or if there's anything that I can do for you at this point, I'll be happy to do that.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On the first example you gave of where the person came to the house and picked up $15,000 to bail out the grandchild,
Yes, sir.
what kind of information does the Lake of the Woods front gate have when somebody comes into the community? Or was this in the Lake of the Woods community or not, or somewhere outside?
It was not in the Lake of the Woods community. And it would have been nice if it was, because I do know that Lake of the Woods has, they record license numbers and video of cars that go in and out of the gate. So it potentially could have given us a lead, on something like that. And I do think that there's a fair amount of people in Lake of the Woods that also have surveillance and video cameras attached to their homes, which would be good. This individual did not have anything like that. But we are currently canvassing the neighbors and to see if anybody did see anything that might have seen anything suspicious that evening.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And to further answer that, it wouldn't be a bad idea to contact Lake of the Woods and talk to the chief in charge of Lake of the Woods security here and find out what they do have for surveillance and deterrence for this type of activity.
Okay.
Good question, Carl.
It's always amazing to me how clever these people are, and it's also, to me, it's a lesson that as educated as we are and as smart as we think we are about scams, that we can still get taken. And the case in point is this email that was floating around last week, the "Can you do me a favor" email. I mean, that initial email, it didn't ask for any money or anything. It just asked, "Can you do me a favor?" And so anybody's natural reaction would be to reply
Right.
and say, "What can I do for you?" And even when you hit reply and you were sent to a different email address, you have to wonder, did they even get any information on you from just replying to the email?
Right. I think, in today's day and time, and again, I can't overstress that scams have been around a long time. We're not going to put an end to them. And the only way that we're going to combat them is to recognize them when they come to our door. And again, the golden rule there, I think, is if you didn't ask for the email and someone is soliciting, even if it's, "Hey, can you do me a favor?" Or, "Hey, can you help me out?" You have to ask yourself, even if it looks like a legitimate email, in the back of your mind, you have to go, "You know what? I'm not going to answer that. I'm going to reach out to the person that sent it."
Right.
It's unfortunate because in the early days of the internet, we didn't have to deal with that. And today we're so electronic and we're so dependent on our electronic devices for communication, text messages and emails and communication even like this, that we just take for granted that we're safe. And we're not. We're just not.
Right. Any comments or questions from anyone else?
I guess I have one question. The dark internet. Ron, I know nothing about it, but a lot of this must be coming from that area or not?
You broke up just a little bit, Vicky.
The dark internet that we often hear about, which I know nothing about, is this part of the problem with
Yes.
all of this?
Yes,
So
definitely.
how much, so who's investigating that? FBI? You know, if that is an area I've always never even tried to get in because I always thought it was a sexual nature type thing. But gosh, I guess I would like more information about it if possible.
You know, and it's a valid question. I have never been on the dark web. I don't want to go on the dark web. We do have investigators that are specially trained both in our agency and on the state level and on the federal level that have received special training and have investigative skills to go on and to navigate that part of the internet. I've heard that it's a pretty scary place to be, that the information, that there's information on there we would never even begin to imagine is on there about us and about other things. So I can't really answer your question on point, but I know that there is a lot of information that we're not aware of about ourselves that are probably out there and obtainable by people who know what they're doing. I think the dark web is a place where you have to have a little bit more computer savvy than the average person does in order to get in there and get out without compromising yourself.
Thanks, Ron. Anybody else? This has been fabulous, very informative. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and educate us. And hopefully we're all a lot smarter about this stuff now and won't be falling prey to anything.
Well, I hope so too.
I'm not going to answer my phone.
Well, and if anybody, if anybody has any questions, any concerns, do not be embarrassed or afraid to reach out to the sheriff's office or reach out to me personally. I'm there for you. I'm there to answer your questions if I can. And if you've got any suspicions about anything and you're not sure about what you should do, we're a good resource. So don't be afraid to call, and any of us will be able to help you and probably tell you whether or not this is a legitimate thing or not.
Okay, thank you, Ron.
Oh, you're welcome.
I think we can still applaud even though we're
Great.
not in the community center.
Well,
All right, thank you all for coming.
Oh,
Appreciate
you're
it.
welcome.
Bye.
Bye.